following program is classified G. It's suitable for all ages.
Tonight, education is the utmost important factor for the development of the country. Due to the pandemic, the education methodology had to change around the globe. Along with this drastic change, teachers' trade union actions took place in Sri Lanka. Education systems were distorted due to this, and as a country, we need to express solution for this issue. Can we still consider teaching as a humanitarian service? Or is this a fair trade union action? What will happen to the future of our children? Good evening, I'm Suzanne Shanali. Tonight, Other Derana and the Morning Investigates. Giving students and parents an opportunity to breathe a sigh of relief last month after months-long protests by teachers and principals and the COVID-19 pandemic situation, the primary grades of schools were reopened, and the educational authorities have expressed hope about reopening other grades gradually. On 21st of October, the primary grades of schools with less than 200 students were reopened, and on 25th of October, the primary sessions of all public schools were reopened. However, there are still challenges that mere reopening of schools cannot address, such as making for the education students lost since last year. And in order to get the teachers' support towards this endeavor, teachers and principals' protests and their demands should be fully addressed. According to the Ceylon Teachers Union, or the CTU, General Secretary Joseph Stalin, even though the spate of discussions held with the government and educational authorities have not come to a favourable culmination, member trade unions of the Teachers' Principal Trade Unions Alliance have arrived at a decision to fulfill their duties in order to support the resumption of educational activities. However, they are determined to continue the protest, demanding solutions to their issues, especially the salary anomaly, which according to them has remained for decades. Protests held after the reopening of schools, however, will not be as intense as the protests that were held before the reopening of schools, and will be limited to small-scale protests and work to rule policies.
අපි විශේෂයෙන්ම ඉල්ලුම් කරලා තියෙන්නේ සුබෝධනයේ කමිටු වාර්තාව. නමුත් ආණ්ඩුව යෝජනා කරලා තියෙන්නේ අමති අනුකමිටුවේ වාර්තාවේ සුබෝධනයේ කමිටුවෙන් තුනෙන් එකයි ඒකේ තියෙන්නේ. නමුත් අපි පියවරක් පස්සට අරගෙන මේ සුබෝධනයේ කමිටුවේ කොටසක් අට මේක ලබා දෙන්න කියලා අපි ඉල්ලීමක් කරලා තමයි අපි මේ ක්‍රියාමාර්ගය ඉස්සරහට යන්නේ. ඒකෙදි අපි පාසල් ආරම්භ කළා 21 22 අපි දෙදිනක වැඩ වර්ජනයක් කළා. ඊට පස්සේ අපි 25 ඉඳන් අකුරට වැඩ කිරීමේ ව්‍යාපාරයක ඉන්නේ. නමුත් වර්තමාන තත්ත්වය ගත්තොත් මේ අරගලේ අපේ තත්ත්වය ගත්තොත් ආණ්ඩුව පැහැදිලිවම ගුරු සහ විදුහල්පති වැටුප් ගැටලුව සම්බන්ධයෙන් අග්‍රාමාත්‍යවරයාත් එක්ක පෞද්ගලික 12 වෙනිදා තිබ්බ සාකච්ඡාවෙන් පස්සේ එක පියවරක්වත් ඉස්සරහට ගිහිල්ලා නැහැ. අපි ඒ අග්‍රාමාත්‍යවරයාගේ සාකච්ඡාවේ අග්‍රාමාත්‍යවරයා කියපු කාරණාවට අපි එකඟතාවය පළ කරේ නැහැ. අපි පැහැදිලිව ප්‍රතික්ෂේප කළා. මොකද අග්‍රාමාත්‍යවරයාගේ සාකච්ඡාවේදී කිව්වේ අමති අනු කමිටුවේ රිපෝට් එක ඒගොල්ලෝ 2022 එක කොටසයි 2023 ඉතුරු කොටස් දෙකයි දෙනවා කියලා අපි එකඟතාවය පළ කරගෙන අපි ඉල්ලුවේ සමස්ත මුදල අපි ඉල්ලුවේ. නමුත් ඒක දුන්නේ නැහැ.
Stalin also pointed out that even though demands have not been met, discussions with the government and the educational authorities have come to a halt following the reopening of the schools. Although various protests organized and attended by teachers and principals, trade unions, trade union coalitions and parents are still ongoing, Stalin said that they have not received any response from the government side since the meeting with Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa. He also said that therefore a number of strict measures will be taken in future. Meanwhile, Ceylon Teachers Service Union, or the CTSU, General Secretary Mahinda Jayasinghe elaborated on the state of the protests.
Now, of course, we have passed 110 days of our struggle. We have started this struggle on 12th of July, and the present situation is we are heading towards with very well organizing our struggle. And last 25th of October, we held 318 demonstrations in island-wide, and next 3rd of October, the parents are ready to help us, and they are ready to demonstrate island-wide by helping us. And not only that, after starting the other schools, especially A-level and O-level classes, we are ready to go another trade union actions.
During the past few days, a number of small-scale protests were held in front of schools in various areas, and some of them had the participation of parents as well. Even though Jayasinghe said that parents participate in these protests to show their support for the teachers' and principals' demands, Sri Lanka Podujana Education Service Union President Wasantha Handapangoda had a different opinion in this regard. She alleged that certain teachers' trade unions are deceiving and misleading parents, and that the support of parents towards these protests is not as big as some claim. She further said that some parents had received short message service or SMSs, texts from members of teachers' trade unions asking them to join the protests. She added that these protests, however, were not about demanding solutions to salary anomalies, and that they had displayed slogans about protecting free education and opposing payments being made for education. Criticizing the alleged use of children to get parents to participate in protests, she said,
මේ විදිහට මිනිස්සු රවට්ටන්න එපා කියන එක මම කලින්ම මහින්ද ජයසිංහලට කියනවා මේ විදිහට කරලා මේ ආණ්ඩුව පෙරලන්න හදනවා නම් ඒක දවල් දැකපු හීනයක්. වැටු පිෂමතා ඉවත් කිරීමට අපි කිසිසේත්ම පසුබට වෙන්නේ නැහැ. අපි ඒ සඳහා අපි ඒක ප්‍රතික්ෂේප කළත් නැහැ. අපි ගුරුවරුන්ගේ දැවෙන ප්‍රශ්න හඳුනාගෙන අපි ඒ සඳහා විසඳුම් ලබා දීමට තියෙද්දි මේ ආකර්ෂණීය සටන් පාඨයක් අරගෙන ගුරුවරු පාරට ඇදලා ගත්තා. දැන් ඔවුන්ගේ දියාරු වෙලා තියෙනවා ඒ සටන.
Handapangoda also said that even though teachers' unions organizing protests anticipated a huge turnout of around 500 to 600 parents, the majority of parents did not participate in these protests, and that only a handful of these protests were even successful.
සියලුම දෙමව්පියන්ට බලපෑම් කරලා ගෙන්නගෙන තියෙන්නේ මේ දෙමව්පිය කිසිම හයක් හතරක් නොතේරන විදියට ඇවිල්ලා තියෙන්නේ මේ විදියට වෘත්තීය අරගල දිනා ගන්න බෑ ඒක පැහැදිලිවම මේ රටේ ගුරු විදුහල්පතිවරුන්ටත් දෙමව්පියන්ටත් මම කියනවා මේ විදියට වෘත්තීය අරගල දිනා ගන්න බෑ දෙමව්පියන්ට කියනවා මම රැවටෙන්න එපා කියලා මේ වැටු පිෂමතා ඉවත් කිරීමට රජයට මේ ආර්ථික අර්බුදකාරී අවස්ථාවේදී රජය දෙන්න පුළුවන් උපරිම සහයෝගය ලබා දෙද්දී මේ කරන්නේ රාජ්‍ය පෙරලීමේ කුමන්ත්‍රණයක්.
Not only about parents' participation in protests during the past few months, but contradictory opinions about teachers' and principals' protests and their demands were expressed by different teachers' trade unions as well, as was evident on the 21st of October when schools were reopened for primary classes. When questioned about this division among teachers and teachers' trade unions, Jayasinghe opined that there is no such division among teachers' trade unions, and that the trade unions that launched trade union actions under the TPTUA are still together.
There are 30 teachers and principals unions with us and no divisions among us, and we are very, I think, very well going ahead. No any division, but some, we know some unions, they are trying to divide this struggle, but the most teachers and principals, they do not help them. They do not help them. They are with us. They are with our decisions. They are going ahead with our decisions. That means the teachers and principals trade union alliance decisions.
Expressing his opinion about the same, Stalin said,
දැන් මේ ඕන්ට කිසි බලයකුත් නැහැ නිකන් හැම වෙලේම හැම එකටම විරුද්ධ වෙන එක තමයි ඕන් කරන්නේ. අපි දන්න සමහර කණ්ඩායමකව මේ අපි අඛණ්ඩ වැඩ වර්ජනයක් කරනවා කියලා වුන් මුකුත් කරෙත් නැහැ. මේ අරගලේ මෙහෙවන්නේ ගුරු විදුහල් දුරු සමිති සන්දානය. අපි පැහැදිලි ස්ථාවරයක ඉන්නවා මේ අරගලේ පෙරට යන්න.
There are several opinions from several parties which represent teachers regarding their trade union action. However, after Sri Lanka faced a severe COVID outbreak, schools have reopened. What will happen to the trade union action then? After the break, we investigate. Welcome back to Investigates. A number of children have been attending schools in a considerable amount of schools have reopened. Will teachers attend to their usual work, or will students isolate themselves in classrooms without any guidance? Is this fair? Here is the rest of our investigation. Addressing the demands put forward by teachers and principals is merely one aspect of this issue. Making up for the time students lost since last year and ensuring that they receive a proper education is also a huge challenge. Despite disagreements and blame games among different teachers and principal groups, and among teachers and principals, trade unions and parents, when schools were reopened late last month, there was a considerable attendance of students and teachers. Even though student turnout was not completely returned to normalcy, speaking to us, parents and students express happiness about the reopening of schools. One student told us while several other students express happiness about being able to come back to school and meet their classmates and teachers. Parents also expressed similar sentiments, with one mother telling that not only children, but she as a parent had also been mentally affected due to the uncertain situation regarding the reopening of schools. Moreover, principals of leading schools expressed support toward the government's decision to reopen schools, and one school principal said that even retired teachers had come to the school to support the resumption of teaching activities. Speaking to the reopening of schools, Stalin said,
ද පැහැදිලිවම අපි දන්නවා පාසල් විවෘත කරන්න රජය තීරණය කරේ මුලින්ම අධීර ක්‍රමය. නමුත් ආණ්ඩුවේ පියවර අයින් කරා මේ ආරම්භ කරන පාසල්වල සෞඛ්‍ය පාසුකම් ඒ වගේම ළමයින්ගේ කොවිඩ් අවදානමෙන් පහව යන්න අවශ්‍ය කරන දේවල් කිසිවක් ලබා දීලා නැහැ. ඒතර පාසල් ආරම්භ කරලා තියෙන්නේ දැන් මේ තත්ත්ව තුල අපි දන්නවා මේකේ කොවිඩ් අවදානමක් තියෙන පසුබිමක් තුල තමයි පාසල් ආරම්භ වෙන්නේ. දැන් මේ වෙනකොට අපි දන්නවා පාසල් ළමයි යම්කිසි විදියකට කොරෝනා ආස්ථාදිත බවට පත් වෙලා තියෙනවා. ඒ වගේම ගුරුවරු ආසාදිත බවට පත් වෙලා තියෙනවා. දැන් මේ තත්ත්ව තුල විධිමත් සෞඛ්‍ය ආරක්ෂණ ක්‍රමවේදයක් පාසල් පද්ධතිය තුල නැහැ.
Expressing his opinion about resuming and expediting students' educational activities, Stalin urged the government to devise a proper plan to ensure the proper resumption of students' education.
ළමයින්ගේ අධ්‍යාපනය සම්බන්ධයෙන් විෂයමාලාවත් නැවත සකස් කිරීමක් අධ්‍යාපන අමාත්‍යාංශය පැත්තෙන් වෙලා නැහැ. මේක බරපතල අර්බුදකාරී තත්ත්වයකට අපි දකින්නේ.
He also alleged that the education authorities did not provide adequate support to promote distance education systems, which he said was extremely important to students during the time schools were closed. Speaking to the same, Jai Singh said that even though certain suggestions have been presented to the government and the education authorities with regard to making up for the time students lost, those suggestions had not received sufficient attention.
Of course, we have proposed so many remedies for these, but we can't see the government is adhered to them. And also we know that last year, after closing the schools on 12th of March 2020, they appointed a presidential task force on 30th or 31st March, but they have done nothing. They have done nothing. They have appointed to give proposals, remedies for this breakup education, but no any remedy they were proposed. Anyway, we think that as trade unions, what they have to do, they have to integrate the syllabuses. They have to integrate the syllabuses 2020 and 2021 and give new syllabus for the teachers and for the students. That's the only remedy, but we don't see the government or the NIE or the Ministry of Education, they are not ready to do that. They have not yet done this. They have not yet initiated this. So that's the situation. As the trade unions, we propose to give integrated syllabus and cover up this lost education. No any other alternative as we think.
The reopening of schools is merely a first step, and according to those who spoke to us, in order to ensure the proper resumption and continuation of educational activities, a lot more needs to be done. Syllabi-related changes and continuous discussions between education sector stakeholders could pave the way to this gradual but essential reform. Thank you for taking the time to join us on Investigates. Investigates will return next week with another matter that affects you and me. Till then, see you soon.